In 2014, most of us in the room were adults. The older I get, the more I realize that I'm getting older and I'm speaking to people who don't understand 2014 that well. In 2000, it feels like a year ago, not 11 years ago. In 2014, an hour north of here, the news was covering an event like crazy. And it stayed in the news cycle for a long time. In fact, it continued to come up for years, and then occasionally it still comes up today. You say, what are you talking about? As soon as I mention it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The city of Flint changed its water source. And as they changed its water source, people began to have problems because the water that they were drinking from was not good. The water that they were drinking from was causing major problems, major issues. It wasn't the fact that they were thirsty that was the problem. It was where they were getting their water from. The place that their water came from was the problem. In fact, we're all thirsty. Technical issues today. That's all right. I remember I was about 11 years old, and it's a rare occurrence that seldom happens today, but happened all the time back in the day. Kids got together to play outside. About a dozen of us, about a 2-year age gap. I was 11 maybe 12. I think I was about 11. And so there were 11-year-olds up to about 13-year-olds, 12 of us. We all went to the park. Summertime, middle of the summer. I think it was late July, somewhere right in there, maybe early August. And we went to play football. Now, it was just friends going to play football. There were no helmets. There were no pads. We were still playing tackle football. We played tackle football. Part of the field that we were playing on, it was a baseball diamond. We were playing in the outfield. But part of where we were playing at ran through the baseball diamond, which wasn't a nice baseball diamond. It wasn't dirt. It was gravel. I still remember being tackled and getting up and my elbow bleeding and little gravel bits being all stuck up in it, right? And you just kind of brush it off, and then you see the smear blood, and then your buddies are like, are you a wuss, or are you going to keep playing? Of course I was going to keep playing. Is a bone sticking out of my arm? No, then you could play football. We played, and I was at the tail end of a world that still used phrases like, water is for wusses. I was at the tail end of that. Now today, like if a coach even dare withholds water for 20 seconds from a kid, he can be fired in a half second. But I was still in that world, and there was no coach, there was nobody. We were 3 blocks from my buddy's house, and I remember several times being like, I'm thirsty, and the older kids being like, water's for wusses. I remember walking back home, not home, but to my buddy's house, and a thought came to my mind when we were about a block away, and the thought was, claim dibs on the hose. I got first on the hose. When I got that hose up, there was nothing. I did not care that the water was slightly warm, sitting in that hose. I did not care that it tasted like rubber, hose water. I can still taste hose water right now. It's not that bad. And just drinking. I'm drinking so long that one of the older kids said, that's enough. Pushed me, grabbed the hose, took his turn, You know what I did? I walked to the back of the line. The mom was not letting us in the house. We were dusty and dirty, and she didn't want nothing to do with it. She said, the hose is fine for everybody. And we're all drinking out of the hose, drinking that water. Flint shows us that we all need thirst. You've experienced thirst like I have. When you're really thirsty and you need a drink. But I think that at least the vast majority of us in this room have come to a place where we've realized that there is something greater and something that we long for and something that we desire. A famous Christian theologian from the 300s, 300 AD, 1800 years ago, he lived. But he was not born into a Christian home. He was not born into a Christian family. And as he was recalling how he grew up, as he was recalling his life before coming to know Jesus, he said a phrase that he wrote down. It's one of his most famous phrases. His name is Augustine. And Augustine said, "Our hearts are restless till they rest in you." Talking about God. He says our hearts are restless. What was Augustine showing? He was showing that in all of his searching and all of his looking, nothing filled the void that he was looking for. Our story that Tyler read from this morning is a story of a lady who was at a well, drawing water, and Jesus shows up on that journey and he changes her thought pattern. He reveals to her that she has a greater thirst. I want to make a little proposal to you today that the thirst that we all have is not the problem, but where we drink from. Where we drink from. You see, we all have a thirst, we all have longings, we all have desires. It's how we were created. We were created thirsty. We were created longing for stuff. It's not a surprise when somebody going through a hard time turns to alcohol. That's not a surprise. That shouldn't throw us for a loop. What are they trying to do? They're trying to satisfy a thirst and an ache and a longing. It shouldn't surprise us that people go from one relationship to another, to another, to another. Why? Because the first one didn't work. But we were created for relationship. We were created to be with people. We were created for a longing, and so it shouldn't surprise us that that takes place. The struggle that we all have isn't our physical thirst, but it's the emptiness that hits us deep down inside. It's that craving that we are looking for more. And in this story, we are going to look at the lady at the well. Now, we're in week number 3 of a series that's entitled Becoming. As Jesus encounters people, He is trying to help them fulfill their thirst. He doesn't always use that thirsty language with them, but He's trying to help them feel that longing in our soul that we all have. That search, that fulfillment, that thing that can cause us actually to be at peace. The thing where we can lay our heads down at night and our brains don't have to run. When do people get the most thirsty? This time of year. This time of year. Thanksgiving. Christmas. New Year's. It's really not probably that they are the most thirsty at this time of year. It just is the time of year that reveals our thirst the most. We miss things at the holidays. I understand. I do this to you every time you're in here. I'm talking to my wife right now. We were out to eat yesterday, and we were talking at the restaurant, and her voice starts quivering, and little tears start coming up, and I didn't do anything. I didn't. It wasn't my fault. You say, yeah. No, this one really wasn't my fault. What was happening? She's thinking about the holidays. And it's holiday number 1, big holiday season without her mom. And then we're reminiscing, and I'm talking about her mom at Christmas, and I'm like, don't you do it to me too. I'm going to start crying. And I was imagining being at Grandma's house with Cindy's mom, and a bunch of us are smashed into the living room, not enough room. We crumple up paper and throw it at each other after the open gifts, and even hit our 90-year-old grandma in the head, and it's fun. And she's losing her memory. She's got dementia, and we were at a birthday party not long ago, and she was still throwing paper, even though she didn't know who she was throwing paper at. But I was picturing her mother from 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years ago, and people that would try to share their presents, right? Like, you get one, and you get one, and you get one, and everybody's supposed to take a turn. But her mom would never open up her presents. She didn't want to miss a second of everybody else opening gifts. And it was well after everybody else opened gifts that she would finally begin to open up her gifts. And we're sitting there, right? And we're recalling these things, and this ache and this thirst is real, right? This desire for something more. And it's not bad that you desire something more. It's not bad that you have your tears and your moments of pain, but there is an answer. In our story here, we're going to see that this woman at the well that Jesus meets, her real thirst is revealed. Her real thirst is revealed. She's at a well, and she very well is probably physically thirsty, but she has a greater longing that Jesus seeks to meet. As a church, we want to care for people's physical needs as well as we can. But in the end, everybody fails physically. In the end, none of us are making it out. We all have one thing in common. If Jesus doesn't come back before we die, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. You might live to be 115, but you're not making it much past further if you do. And so there's a greater need that we seek to meet. Do we want to care for people's physical needs? Of course we do. We care about thirsty people in Flint. We care about hungry people in Clawson or in Detroit. We care about the hurts that people have. But you can fix one, and it doesn't mean they're not going to have another one, and another one, and another one. And we want to be there for those. And we want to do as much as we can to touch those. But ultimately, you can gain the whole world. And Jesus says, if you gain the whole world and lose your own soul, what does it profit a man? What does it profit if you have everything, but you lose your own soul? And so Jesus is going to help this lady see that she has a deeper need. Jacob's well was there, and she was worn out from, or Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, worn out from his journey, sat down at the well. It was about noon. Jesus is there before anybody else is there. He sits down at the well, tired from his journey. He's tired from this journey because they've walked a long way. Now, they didn't walk how the normal Jewish people walked. You see, this is in a city called Samaria. And the Jewish people did not go to Samaria. No. If you traveled from the north to the south of the country, a small country about the size of Rhode Island, if you traveled from one side to the next, it would make sense to go through Samaria. But the Jews didn't go through Samaria. Because the people that lived in Samaria weren't Jews. They hated them. The Jews were pretty much racists. Okay? They hated everybody that wasn't them because they were God's chosen people and the rest of you aren't. The rest of you, you're not a Jew, so we don't want you. You don't worship like us. You don't think like us. You're not from us, and we're God's chosen people. That was the Jewish mindset. But they hated the Samaritans more than they hated everybody else because the Samaritans were half Jew. And so most Jewish people, when they would travel, they would go out of their way to avoid Samaria. They would travel further. I don't like traveling further when I can go 80 miles an hour in a car. I really don't want to travel further when I got to walk in the desert, in sandals, through it. But that's how much the Jewish people hated the Samaritans. Jesus says, I must go through Samaria. The disciples, we have no record of the disciples going, what? They probably learned at this point, well, we're just going to do what he says, but we don't know why. And Jesus goes to Samaria. He lands there in Samaria. You're going to hear it a little bit. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. So she shows up and Jesus says, give me a drink. Now this is kind of funny. Like, could you please get me a drink? I'm really thirsty. Would you help a brother out? He just says, give me a drink. His disciples had gone into town to buy food. He's by himself, waiting at the well. This lady shows up. And now look at her answer to him. How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me? She knew that Jews didn't talk. A Samaritan woman. Not only is she a Samaritan, she's a woman. This is ancient culture in the Middle East. She doesn't have the same rights as men. This isn't America, 20th century, 21st century. She asked him, for Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered, if you knew the gift of God and who is saying to you, give me a drink, you would ask him and he would give you living water. So Jesus makes a statement to her to cause her mind to think. She doesn't know what he's talking about, but she kind of knows you're not talking about this water. He speaks to her differently. He is causing her mind to wonder. He's trying to reveal a true thirst. Do you know what many of the problems are with Christians when we speak to the world? When we speak to those outside of the church, do you know what a problem is? We come out guns blazing, guns swinging, and we don't cause them to think. He causes her to think. He doesn't say to her, yo, you're thirsty, and this is why you're thirsty. You got this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. He doesn't do that. Do you know why? Because people didn't respond well to that 2,000 years ago, and people don't respond well to that right now. People don't like you come out and go. Why? You know what it does? It makes you go on the defensive right away. It makes you put up your guard like, what are you doing? Instead, he says, if you knew the gift of God. She's going, well, do I know the gift of God? And who is saying to you? She's like, huh? You know who's talking to you? Now, he's not saying, do you know who's talking to you? That's not how he's answering this. But he's saying, if you knew, he would give you living water. Sir, said the woman, you don't even have a bucket. And the well is deep. So where do you get this living water? He says something to her that causes her to ask a question back. Oh. Can I speak in a way that causes people to ask me questions. Now you're going somewhere. Now you're moving. Jesus wants her to ask questions. Why? Because now she's thirsty a little bit. She says, oh, if I can say something to get somebody to ask a question rather than get defensive, now I'm going somewhere. Does he want to help her? Yeah. But he knows that she needs to be thirsty. She needs her true thirst revealed so he can help her. What's the old statement? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Some of us, we want to drag them there and beat them over the head with the board. Drink! Man, I could go out on the street corner on Clawson. I could preach for hours this afternoon. Give me the bullhorn. You all could hold signs out there. Probably not going to have very many people come to know Jesus that way. You just probably not. They're going to go, that dude's crazy. Do you know why? You know the viral clips that some of you watch online of Christians? The best thing they do is when they get the person to start talking to them, engaging in conversation. There's ones that they win the argument. They have the most logical answer, and the person walks away mad. But if they can get a conversation going, now, even if the person doesn't come there, they're walking away going, I got to think about this a little bit more. We want people thinking and asking questions, not on the defensive. You don't even have a bucket. So where do you get this living water? Great question. She says, you aren't greater than our father Jacob, are you? Here's most Christians. Of course! Jesus doesn't do that. She says this about Jacob. He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and livestock. This well's been around for more than 1,000 years. It's still producing water. That's why she likes Jacob. She don't care about Jacob. She cares about what Jacob left her. She says, you haven't left me anything. That's what she's saying. So you haven't left me anything. You can't be greater than him. He left me this well, and it still works. She says, for my people, or so we see this thirst all throughout Scripture. This thirst comes all throughout Scripture. People are thirsty. The prophet Jeremiah is writing to people who are supposed to believe in God, and God's speaking through Jeremiah. He says, they have abandoned me, the fountain of living water. This living water's always been there. We have to help people know it's there. It's amazing how we struggle. Isaiah wrote about it. He says, come everyone who is thirsty, come to the water. Come, come, come. He's inviting people to drink. It's always an invitation. Why? Because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You want to help them know they're thirsty. They know they are, but you have to convince them that your water is the right water. In all throughout Scripture, we see these things. I'm skipping through some verses here that I have on the screen because I got a lot of them, and we're going to go too long because I always go too long. For the Lord your God, even the Holy One of Israel, has glorified you. The nation of Israel has run away. They've run away from God. They've been thirsty. Here's what the end of the passage in Isaiah says. I'm struggling on my screens. Can you go back one for me? There it is. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call to him while he is near. God's opening up the door. The psalm writer wrote this. He says, give me that next slide, Ivy. He says, God, you are my God. I eagerly seek you. I thirst for you. This thirst has always been there. Why? Because we're restless without God, and he's the answer. He's helping people get to him. Famous Christian from long ago, John Owen, said this: Christ is more ready to bestow grace than we are to ask for it. He wants to give the thirst. He wants to satisfy the longing that we have. He's trying to reveal to her thirst. But then I want you to see true fulfillment offered. He's showing her thirst. He's engaging with her. He's getting her to ask questions back. And now he's going to offer it. He says, everyone who drinks from this water will get thirsty again. She knows that. She knows that. She's had to go to the well multiple times. But he's using where she's at to help her move to where she needs to go. When we engage with people, we need to know where they're at. How can you know where someone's at if you never take the time to be around them and listen and hear? She's having a conversation with him. She's saying things that aren't right. She's saying things that don't make all the sense in the world because she doesn't know. She says, you're not greater than Jacob, are you? He's the father of Jacob. He's the creator. He's the God who's always existed. He is the answer for all people, for all time, and he's not offended by her question. He says, but whoever drinks from the water that I will give him will never get thirsty again. In fact, the water I will give him will become a well of water springing up in him for eternal life. He says, I'm going to give you so much water that you have plenty to give away to other people. You have plenty to give to other people. It'll be a spring, a well of water springing up in him. He says, it's not your own source. You don't have water, but I'll give you a well. I'll put it within inside of you that will let other people drink from what you've been drinking from. It'll come out from within you. Sir, the woman said to him, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and come here to draw waters. She still doesn't understand it, but she wants it. She says, give it to me. Tell me what you got. You know why? Because the whole time he's just been having a conversation. The whole time he's just been having a conversation with her. He's helping her see her need, and she says, yeah, I got one. I got one. She doesn't quite understand what it is yet, but she says, I want what you got. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? Now, this is where the crazy stuff comes in. He says, go call your husband. He told her, and come back here. Now, why is Jesus doing this? Because all of us are broken. All of us have a need, but you don't drink until you realize that you are. What has he done? He has won her to himself. He's developed a relationship with her. Now she's engaged. She's really close to being ready to drink the satisfying water, but he's got to show her that she's empty and broke. And so he says, go call your husband. Now what's the problem? Maybe you know the story, maybe you don't. So here's the problem. She says, I don't have a husband. Jesus says, you have correctly said, I don't have a husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true. Sir, the woman replied, I see that you are a prophet. She said, how do you know all this about me? She said, how do you know? You must be a prophet. And Jesus very well was a prophet. He was more than a prophet, but he was certainly a prophet. And she says, you know things about me. You know things about me. Now, how does he get away with calling her out like this? Because he's already engaged. He's not trying to call her out in front of the world. It's a one-on-one conversation in private. No one's there looking around. He's not blasting her in front of everybody. He's having a one-on-one conversation moment with her. Sir, the woman replied, I see that you are a prophet. If I knew, I don't know what Jesus knows. If I knew the bad things you did this week, and I was like, hey, and I said your name right from here, and I said, you're going to walk up here and you're going to repent. You'd be like, not only am I not walking up there, I'm walking out there and I'm never coming back. He's talking to her one-on-one. Sir, the woman replied, I see that you are a prophet. She said, our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews say that the place to worship is in Jerusalem. Jesus told her, believe me, woman, an hour is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. Now this whole thing has always been weird to me. It's always been weird to me. He just got done saying, you got 5 husbands and the one you're with now ain't your husband. And she starts talking about worship. She says, you Jews worship over there. Like, is she just trying to avoid the subject? Okay, yeah, either she's going to try to defend herself, or she's going to say, can we talk about this a little bit more? She starts talking about worship. He's talking about you got 5 husbands. Because his whole point for bringing that up was so she would understand who he is. Because her problem isn't that she's got 5 husbands. You say, what? That's not her problem. Why does she have 5 husbands and the one she has now isn't her husband? Because she's thirsty. She's looking for answers, and she's looking for answers in the wrong place. I only got one wife, and my wife is glad for that. But she is not the answer for me. And I am not the answer for her. Do you know why? Because she could leave out of here today and get hit in a head-on accident and no longer be here. I'm not guaranteed to be with her forever. And if she's my answer, then my answer's gone, and what do I have? I'm not saying people aren't gifts from God. I'm not saying people aren't wonderful gifts. I'm not saying I would be okay with that. I'm saying she can't fulfill my deepest longings. And no person can. No person can fulfill your deepest longings. She is a gift from God to me, but God is what I need. Because He can't be taken away. Because He doesn't get tired, He doesn't get sick, and He doesn't get moody. He doesn't have problems. She has to deal with me. God is consistent, loving, never fails, never falters. God's never lost His cool with me. I've lost my cool with her. She's understanding who He is. Why does He say you got 5 husbands? Because He wants her to know that He's God. So she starts talking about worship because that's all she understands about who God is, where she worships at. He says, you Samaritans worship what you do not know. He's being very truthful and plain here. He says, you don't know. We worship what we do know because salvation is from the Jews. Why? Because Jesus was a Jew. But an hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Yes, the Father wants such people to worship Him. What did all the Jewish people have to do? They had to go to a temple. Why? Because that's where the Spirit of God was. Jesus is saying, no, the Spirit of God is with me, and everybody that has me, you can worship anywhere. We don't come to church to worship. Now everybody's like, oh my goodness, why do we call it a worship service? I sort of say that for people, but I just don't really believe that. I think we should worship everywhere. As believers in Jesus, you should worship God when you wake up. You should worship God when you go for a walk. You can worship God anywhere. And yes, I hope worship of God does happen here. Our primary job here as believers in Jesus is to grow, is to minister to one another so that we can grow and be strengthened and go minister to people outside of here. We care for one another here, strengthen one another here, minister to one another here, and part of that is through worship. But that's not our main focus. Our lives ought to be worshipful. It ought to just happen in everything we do. God is a spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and truth. The woman said to him, I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When He comes, He will explain everything to us. She's heard stories. Jesus told her, I, the one speaking to you, am He. He said, I'm Him. I'm Him. You satisfy me as with rich food. My mouth will praise you with joyful lips. The psalm writer tells us that Jesus is the satisfaction. God is the satisfaction of our hearts. God is the thing that we are looking for. Blaise Pascal, famous Christian scientist, wrote this. He says, there is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every person that cannot be filled by any created thing, but only by God the Creator. I'm no different than the woman at the well. I just got introduced to Jesus a little bit earlier. I just got introduced to Jesus earlier. I'm not any better. You're not any better. None of us are better. We might find ourselves in different circumstances because of how we were raised, who we were around. But we're not better. We've just happened to maybe find the Creator first. That's all. Dallas Willard died a few years ago. He said, we are built for God. Nothing less will ever satisfy us. Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls. After his 3rd Super Bowl win, in an interview, he said, is this all there is? Is this all there is? Fame and championships didn't do it for Tom Brady. He said there has to be something more. John D. Rockefeller, from 100 plus years ago, in today's money was worth more than Elon Musk. He was filthy rich. When asked how much money is enough, Rockefeller said, just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Come on, dude. Wilt Chamberlain, famous NBA basketball player from decades ago, sought pleasure in women. He said that he had been with more than 10,000 women. He said, I would rather have been with one woman 1,000 times than 10,000 women one time. Here's what Chamberlain found out. Pleasure didn't satisfy. Here's what Rockefeller found out. Money didn't satisfy. Here's what Tom Brady found out. Fame didn't satisfy. They could have read somebody who had all of those things. Fame, extreme wealth, and extreme pleasure before them. His name was Solomon. And he wrote this. When I considered all that I had accomplished and what I labored to achieve, I found everything to be futile and a pursuit of the wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. He says, all futile. He says, all vain. It's all vanity. None of it did anything for me. He had 1,000 women. Was it 300 wives and 700 concubines? Or 700 concubines, 300 wives? I always get confused. 1,000 women. Didn't do anything for him. Wealth beyond imagination. People came to see his wealth. People traveled to hear about him because they heard of his knowledge and his wisdom and his wealth, and he did everything that you could imagine to do. And he said, it's nothing to be gained. It's all futile. But when we receive Jesus, it overflows into others. When we receive Jesus, it overflows into others. Then the woman left her water jar, went into town, and told the people, come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They left the town and made their way to him. Now, many Samaritans from that town believed in him because of what the woman said when she testified. He told me everything I ever did. She's at the well. You and I imagine a well that always has a bucket hooked to it. There's no bucket there. That's why Jesus is still thirsty when she shows up. She leaves her jar. She's not going down to the dollar store to pick up her dollar bucket. She's not even going to Walmart or Home Depot to pay $10 or $15 for a bucket. It takes time. It took effort. It was a great cost to have the jar to go down to the well. She leaves her jar. She leaves everything to go tell. So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 days. Many more believed because of what he said. And they told the woman, we no longer believe because of what you said, since we have heard for ourselves and know that this really is the Savior of the world. It overflowed from her. Why? Because Jesus just engaged her right where she is. Right where she is. She had to acknowledge her brokenness. And when she figures out that he's got the answer, you notice how she went back and talked to the people? If we go back a few verses, go back a couple more. Let's see. Scroll it for me, Ivy. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Right there. Come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? She's getting them to think further. Why would she leave her water pot and go run and tell everybody about all that he did if she didn't already believe in her own heart? And they believe on him based on her word. She was absolutely convinced that Jesus was the answer. It's why she left her water jar, and it's why she went back and told it. She just engages them how Jesus engaged her. She says, guys, he told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? Could this be the one that we've been looking for? Could this be the answer? Some believed because of her. But many more believed because they went and checked it out. They went and checked it out. Why? Because she engages them the way Jesus engaged her. She don't come out guns swinging. She's creating thirst. Could this be the Messiah? Well, maybe we should go see if it is. Look, we live in a world that science is the answer, that money is the answer, that a better job is the answer, that relationships with so-and-so is the answer. We live in that world. She lived in a different world than we do. How we talk to people is a big deal. How do you want to be talked to? How do you speak to? She does the same thing. She's drawing people to Jesus. He's the answer. What did he do? He talked to her, and she asked back. How did he talk to her? He's like, come on, ask me a little bit more. What's he doing? He's inviting her to come and see. Come and see. Then he says, I am the answer. I'm the one. He's saying, come and follow me. And now she's willing to die. She's willing to leave all behind. What does she have to do? She leaves her jar And she runs back into town to start telling people about Jesus. This is a woman that doesn't fit in her own society. Women didn't go to the well oftentimes by themselves in that society. Why is she out there? Because she doesn't fit in with everybody else. And now she's willing to risk everything to go back because she has the water inside of her overflowing into others. As we want to spread the good news of Jesus, we need to help them know that they are thirsty. So we speak and ask questions to cause them to think. I love when people ask me questions. I grew up in the church world where I was always told what to do. Always. Always. I worked in the church world where when I asked questions, as an adult, on staff, I got reprimanded because I didn't ask them publicly, I asked them quietly and silently behind the scenes, and I was criticized for it. I said, enough of that, I'm going to go start my own church. And I decided that people could ask questions. Could ask anything they want to ask. Now, there are people, they want to trap you, and it's kind of obvious. But honest questions are always welcome. Always. He says, what? Where's this water? But people have to be thirsty enough. If they're not thirsty enough, then you back up and you pray and you serve and you love. And a little while later, you come back and you ask another question and you see if they go, hey, and they engage in conversation with you. And now you can go a little further. It's what Jesus does over and over and over again. Do you know who he went after? Oh, he says some really harsh things. He calls people snakes. And it seems like he's doing it with a lot of force, like you would do on a street corner. He does it to the religious leaders. It's the same way Paul writes to the church. Paul writes to people in the church, and when the Apostle Paul writes to people in the church, he goes after them. Because you'll always deal with what's in your own house before you worry what's outside. Hey, your house is burning down. Meanwhile, yours is burning down too. I'm sorry, if the neighbor's house is on fire, my house is on fire, I'm too busy to notice my own house is on fire. But many Christians, they don't realize their own house is on fire and they're attacking everybody else. Let's take care of ourselves and let's let God work on people. Not that we don't care, not that we're not praying, not that we don't notice problems. They're all over. I notice them all the time. And you know what? People don't care that I know the answer. They don't care. I'd love to have an audience with all of Clawson on a hill at the football stadium. Hey, Clawson, I know what's wrong with all of you. They don't care. They don't care. You know why? Because people don't care. The super trite statement, until they know how much you care. This woman don't care till Jesus starts having a conversation and she can see that there's something different about him. You got to get close to people. I've corrected you, right? And we've had a lot of conversations, especially over the last couple of years. And every time I do, it goes really, really well the last few years. Why? Because of how close we are. Because of how close we are. I'll always try to talk one-on-one when I'm dealing with a problem. Oh, maybe in a sermon, but I'm never calling people's names out because it doesn't work. Let's love people right where they're at like Jesus did. Let's ask questions. Let's speak in a way that causes them to ask questions back. Let's help them be curious. Because curiosity can lead to commitment. How committed was she to Jesus? Forget the water I came here for. I got to go tell all these other people about him. And a whole town was changed because Jesus asked some questions. If anybody had a right to come in guns blazing, it was him. And he still didn't do it. He still didn't do it. Because he's not interested in bringing attention to himself. He came to serve and make a difference in people's lives. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for